The vlog I'm going to do today is one by Pastor Buz Menhart. Pastor Buz was asked to do a history of the Shenandoah Valley Academy for the Newmarket Historical Society. It was done in the Fellowship Hall of the Newmarket Church. Enjoy.
Pastor Buz is going to share more information about the facility, and I want to thank him and the crew at the Seventh-day Adventist Academy for a lovely location to have our picnic and program today. Buz?
You're welcome. Thank you, all of you. I can tell that there are many people here who know a lot more about this place than I do. Whoa. But I just thought maybe we could just spend a few moments. Carol said 25 minutes, 20 minutes, and open for questions. I'm going to try, okay? I'm going to try. I might start preaching and call for an offering too, so I mean, you know. We'll pause on that, but much credit goes to this gentleman who wrote the book, Richard Harris. And he was a friend of mine, was here many years on this campus, pastor, Bible teacher, retired. And he actually has, if you're really interested, before he passed away, he spent a lot of years putting together the history of this church and this school. And he has, it's been uploaded on YouTube, and I wish I just started looking at it yesterday, but he has done did a lot of research, old records and all kinds of stuff, and he was even able to interview some of the former principals of this school. And it's very interesting to hear, you know, their recollections of what took place in this academy. So again, I know that I'm in good company. And if I get a historical fact wrong, just be like my wife and let me know, okay? And that's fine with me. It probably would help a little bit, right? I'll hit the wrong one and it'll go out everywhere. So, which one is better? I like that. Is that good? Is that good? Okay. So, Newmarket, as we all know, is famous for the battle. And the story of Shenandoah Valley Academy begins 1 year and 4 months after the Battle of Newmarket. And that's when Charles Zirkle was born, September 22nd. His mom and dad, John and Elizabeth Zirkle, which, this is really cool. I need to shake your hand. I mean, this is amazing, you know. They actually own a farm right on this property. And if you go down on the back side of the academy where the ball field is, you'll see where their farm was, the Zirkle House and Farm. A brick home. Dick Harris says that some of the brick were fired by local Indians, Native Americans. It was put together. One feature of this farm, you can kind of almost imagine when you go down the road sort of where this might be. It's the gravel road if you go past the defunct, never used for a while, sewage treatment plant, and head out to that farm and to where you can get access to the river. You'll come across a little monument that Dick Harris put up, because on their property was an old stone fort. And when you think of a fort, don't think of a big place, but it was there to protect the people from any intruders, mostly Native American Indians. In fact, history tells us that George Washington came through this area And about every 50 miles, they built a fort. So there was one in Winchester. You can kind of get the idea, kind of the outer perimeters of the American colonies at that time, or that was even prior to the colonies. And so this was a place where there was a fort. This was not one that was made by George Washington, but rather local people put it together. And I think I would describe it more in my mind, more like a keep at a castle. When the enemy comes, you just kind of go inside. They can't burn this down, and you protect yourself that way. Now it's very interesting that Jan remembers playing in that place when she was a kid. So give us a little affirmation. Help me out on that one, Jan.
Just, I lived up on the hill that's behind the academy, and we would go down and play, because the river was right there too. And just remember playing at that old house. And when I remember that Cy and Geraldine still lived in that house when they first moved.
The old Zirkle farmhouse, yeah.
They lived in that house.
I remember hearing that.
It was inhabited,
Yeah, up until, that would have been in the, 50s, 60s?
Early 60s.
Yeah. So, but since then it's obviously been torn down. So that's part of the property right here. And this is the Zirkle barn, no longer standing. Unfortunately, the academy and resources, and it just became old. But there's an interesting story behind this barn. And that is when the battle was on, of course, there was wounded soldiers on both sides. And my recollection of the history account is that there was a hospital set up in the Baptist church. And Mary Zirkle went there and fed the soldiers. And it didn't matter to her which ones who was wounded. She just brought food and offered care. And of course, some of those were Union troops. And because of that, when they came through and did the scorched earth policy, they were burning all kinds of barns, the Union soldiers were. But the general had given Mary a letter that said, please, they were treated us nice, don't burn their barn. And so that barn stayed. And it was there, I would imagine, I can't remember, Jan, when it finally collapsed. Bill might remember.
It was taken down.
Because it was really dilapidated, yeah. And it was a place where students would hang out. Yes.
I might mention that I did take a couple of the wooden pegs out of the barn, and I still have them.
Okay, so we have some artifacts from that barn. So anyway, that's kind of a little bit of the, and by the way, when I tell the students on campus about the Battle of Newmarket, war is inevitable in life. It just happens. And I'm not trying to glorify war or one side or the other in this day and age that we live in, but all of you remember it was 256 young men from Virginia Military Institute that took the battle. They led the charge. And they look at our students and they say, it's young people that need to be in the Lord's army and take the charge. So we talk about it here on campus because it's part of us. It's, it's where we are. So that's a little bit about the Zirkles. But the other interesting thing is that in January of 1876, these two men came. Albert B. Lane was from from Michigan. Corliss was from Maine. They were living in a place called Battle Creek, Michigan. Seventh-day Adventists, that was kind of our headquarters in that time. The Zirkles were interested in something about the Seventh-day Adventist religion. And so they contacted the headquarters there, and they sent these two guys. And they came and started meetings. That was very typical during that time for Adventists to have meetings. And what's very fascinating is Corliss, from Maine, he actually enrolled in the Union Army. And he was stationed in Virginia. And so when he came here, he had a keen interest in the Civil War. You could understand. I mean, you know how vets are, right? You know, they talk and they share. In fact, there was a family, Ephraim Woods, you know, Woods Chapel? They called him Father Woods. He had, I think it was, 8 sons? All of them fought in the Civil War. They all survived. And they actually were very interested in Corliss, would go there and teach Bibles to them and discuss things. And I thought about that. It's like very fascinating. Here's a guy. He fought for the North. He's in the South. Now, we're only talking, you know, not too long since the Civil War ended. And he's talking to Confederate vets. And they enjoyed the conversation. I thought that was most interesting. But I can just imagine Corliss walking downtown Newmarket, 1860, okay, right? You know, I mean, that's kind of how it looked. You've seen this picture before, and just for the fun of it, I put one of these here, okay? And then just for the fun of it, see if you can see anything, you know, it kind of looks the same. Some of the buildings obviously have had more added to them and some taken down, but you know, that's downtown Newmarket, 1860, around that. And I could just imagine Corliss, this Civil War vet, walking through Newmarket. He had to just pause, right, and look at the Strayer House.
Let me give an explanation about the next few minutes of the video part of this vlog. I had to go and turn off the lights in the kitchen and down the hall, but I had no one to hand my camera to continue videoing. So you see me turn off the kitchen lights and then the hall lights and then back. Now you understand.
Because he heard that Stonewall Jackson was on his horse, reviewing the troops as they came through. And maybe if he goes just a little further north in town, I'm sure he had to notice the 3-inch rifle shell embedded in that fence post by Reformation Lutheran Church. You just, I mean, doesn't it seem possible that he would have done that? He's interested. But he was here, and him and Corliss actually held some tent meetings. And it was at those tent meetings that Elizabeth Zirkle made a decision to be baptized and become a member of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Before I get there, this is another interesting thing. The first meeting that they had, you know, open to the public, was at a little church, and the second one was at, this is before Mrs. Zirkle got baptized. The second one was at the old Polytech Institute. And, you know, we know where the site is. And I got reading something about it, and I found out this. Please, if you'll just indulge me just a moment, because one of my favorite hymns is written by a gentleman by the name of Anthony Johnson Showalter. Okay, you know where he was born? Rockingham County, around Timberville. And he wrote this song. This is one of the first hymns I learned how to play on my guitar. What a fellowship, what a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessedness, what a peace is mine, leaning on the everlasting arms. He wrote the music to that song. So that song has roots right here. But you know what else is very fascinating? The first official music school that he went to, you want to guess where it was? Newmarket. There's his picture. Anthony J. Showalter, I think I got his name right. But notice this. He went to the Newmarket Polytech building, included the Virginia Normal Music School. That's the one he went to get his first music training. Right here in little old Newmarket. Wow. So, that's just a little sidebar. But because that's one of my favorite hymns, I thought I'd just throw that in there. Because you probably didn't know that, did you? Right? Another little factoid, okay? They had meetings also at Soliloquy, Virginia. Do you know where that is? It's out off Cardinal Road. I'm sorry, Smith Creek. If you go down to Cardinal Road and going north, and then you go down to the end, almost to the end, you can make a left. Smith Creek comes through there, and it's kind of at the corner. That was an old school building, and the Adventists had meetings there. It was a Christian place as well. By the way, does anybody know Tom Street? Okay. Tom attends this church once in a while. He has a special friend that attends here. She's very nice. And his grandmother lives in that building. And I want to talk to you sometime to find out about this because, whoa, this is where Mary Zirkle went and had meetings. And that's kind of where the church, the Adventist church, sort of got organized. In fact, she was baptized. I don't know if I have the slide. She was baptized in Smith Creek on June 17th, 1876. This year we had camp meeting, and our Sabbath day happened to be June 17th. And I shared this with all the people that came to the tent in the camp meeting. I don't know if this is the spot, but I just walked down from that old schoolhouse in Soliloquy, and there's Smith Creek, and I thought, well, it has to be kind of somewhere around here, and I took the picture. Don't know, but somewhere there in Smith Creek. Isn't that kind of interesting? This is where we live. So, that's Mary Zirkle. Oh, there's Ephraim Woods, Father Abraham. I told you about him. Father Woods, sorry. Woods Chapel, you've heard about that. That's kind of where he had his congregation. Well, Mary became an Adventist, and at that time, in the 1870s, late 1870s, as Charles grew up, she sent him to our school, Adventist Seventh-day Adventist School in Battle Creek, Michigan, Battle Creek College. One of the head people there, his name was John Harvey Kellogg. Okay, you know that name. He had a sanitarium in his school. They talked a lot about health. It was very, very popular to go there. This was the time, when those kinds of sanitariums were important. You could go and recuperate and rejuvenate, fresh air exercises, water and rest, abstinence and diet. All those kinds of things were part of the curriculum they taught. Many famous people went to the sanitarium, but he had a college, medical college, as well as other kinds of classes. And Elizabeth sent John there, or Charles. And I think it was there, this is just my opinion, reading in between the lines, sometimes historians, of course I'm not a historian, I'm more of a preacher, a storyteller, but sometimes you just kind of can imagine things, and I think it was there that he said, wow, this is really kind of cool, to have a school where you're learning something practical, and still the Bible is part of the curriculum, there's a real spiritual influence there, and I wouldn't be surprised if he thought to himself, someday I'd like to start a school like that. Because that's what happened. Charles' house was on this side of 211. Were you ever in this house?
No.
Okay. And right now, if you go out to where our school sign is, that's basically where the house was. And unfortunately for Charles, he was involved in some tent meetings, Adventist tent meetings. He was more on the treasury side, and he fell, probably on one of the tent ropes, and injured his lungs when he fell on the stake. Never recovered from that. He had some, I believe, sort of like a tuberculosis. Dr. Gary could tell me on that because he would have the medical terms. And so here Charles, he has this idea, and he really wants to do something like what he saw up at Battle Creek, thinking if we could have something like that here in Virginia, it would be awesome, with the permission of his parents. He's on his deathbed in his house. He looks across. He sees his inheritance of the family farm, 42 acres. And he said, I want that to go to the Virginia Adventists so they can build a school. And by the way, this school was started when someone made a donation. They gave a gift. And that started this school. Well, it didn't go well. He died in 1905. It took a while for everybody to kind of bring it to reality. And 3 years later, 1908, is when school opened. And this is a picture of the original school building. Kind of cool. You can see the gap in there. Isn't that neat? Yeah, right over there is Newmarket Gap. So we know we're on this site. And the school is real simple. Basically, the boys' dorm, I don't remember which side was which. Just say, right now, if we were to follow it, this would be the girls' dorm, this would be the boys' dorm. Classrooms kind of on this floor. Basement cafeteria. Dormitory rooms up there. Guess who lived in the middle? Principal, his wife, and teachers. And so it was all housed that way. Oh, I wish I could remember how many students. It was just a handful. Was it 16 or, yeah, something like that. It was just a small little group. But that was the beginning, 1908. Tragedy struck. Yeah, just a few years later, in 1913, there was a fire, and enrollment was down, and it was very difficult. In fact, I want to read something that happened. Well, there might be another slide. In 1918, okay, well, I'll go back to the 19th. Oh, am I getting too long?
You're good.
Okay. Well, I found it interesting too. So just 5 years after the school opened, 7 students were enrolled. The dormitories were empty. The campus seemed deserted. The classrooms looked empty. By the way, it's hard to finance a boarding school on 7 students. And then when the weather turned cold, there was a fire. The building caught on fire. There weren't any funds to repair the damage, so the school was closed. In the fall of 1913, and by that name was called Shenandoah Valley Training Academy, was closed. Sad thought. No one saw it coming, fire damage. And here's the interesting account that Dick Harris tells. When the school board met, Adventist church leadership urged the academy to permanently close, 1913. They wanted the school to be moved to Doswell, closer to Richmond, and a larger population base from which to draw students. When the president was giving his recommendation, Thomas Zirkel, that would have been Charles's brother, he was one of the board members. He couldn't bear to hear what was being said. In plain view of everyone at this committee, he put his fingers on his ears, and he wanted his brother's dying wish to continue. We believe God used that unlikely gesture. 7 of the 12 board members were people from the Shenandoah Valley. They believed in the work and ministry of the academy, and those board members must have gazed down the hallway of time. Here's where I get a little preacher. They knew there wouldn't be a graduating class of 1914, but they were willing to sacrifice and work hard so there'd be a class of 1915 and 16 and 23 and 33 and 43 and 53 and 83 and 73. They believed the time would last. There would be a class of 83, 93, 2003, 2013, and even 2023. The board members must have said, we must keep the school open for the generations yet to come. And God provided the property. Surely He will provide a way to keep this school open. When the vote was counted, the decision was unanimous to repair and reopen the school. And so it almost was closed. Yes, ma'am.
1914 was the only year we didn't have a graduating class.
Yeah, right. And my son graduated in 2012, and because of that, I did the math. He really was in the 100th year that graduated, even though it didn't work out numerically.
What happened? Slide you were about that slide you were about to show us?
Oh, the next one? Yeah, okay, well that's 1918. The devil did his best to discourage us. In October, the flu struck the school. What do we call that? Pandemic, right? Miss Anna Watkins, matron of the school, and I, this is the principal's wife, carried a little oil stove, fomentation cloths, and a dishpan of water from floor to floor, battling the fever. This next sentence is hard for me to read. The Lord blessed, and we saved all of the students except one, my 13-year-old daughter, Doris. Yeah. So, and this was most interesting to me because 2021, we had a pandemic. And to realize that that was not something that was unfamiliar to this campus. Let me read you one more thing about what it was like for these early students, okay? Soon after the school opened, this is back in 1913, students planted an acre of strawberries and half acres of blackberries and raspberries. By the way, we have a farm back here. It's called Emmanuel's Ground. And believe it or not, strawberries are in season. I'm just saying, okay? And I went to get some on Wednesday. It's open on Wednesday, and they were all gone. I got there at 4 o'clock. It opens at 3. A young apple orchard began producing early. Students could work in a hennery. I never knew what that was, but they cared for 1,000 chickens. And then came this pandemic, which we just read about. So that's kind of some of the things that the students did back in the early days. I'll move quite a bit faster here. This is one of the early supporters of the Shenandoah Valley Academy, as it's now known. Elder Hoddle and his wife, and they are in their horse and buggy. And back then, many students would travel by train, and they would get off there at the train tracks down on Depot Road. There must have been a depot there somewhere, because it was named Depot Road, right? And they'd go down, and I don't know if it was this horse and buggy, but someone would go down with a wagon and pick the kids up and bring them to school. So that's how they got from there to here. Probably others might have come in on some other means. I know later there was a where was the bus stop? It was it at the well, not the Exxon station. It was
Up there at the old log cabin.
at the log cabin, yeah. And I know we get students from there and bring them here. And then that original building evolved. It became dilapidated, and they remodeled it. We had a conference leader who believed in this school. You can kind of see, the middle section. Boy, this is really pixelated when I put it up here. And these were the other sides, and they added on to it, extended it, and that became known as Elliott Hall. And this was in the 30s when this took place. But once again, there's been so many fires on this campus with buildings. I think that must have been just a habit back in those days, because a lot of places, I was at a school a similar school in Asheville, North Carolina, called Mount Pisgah Academy. And they had fires there all the time in the early history. So it must have just been part of the way things were, dry wood and et cetera, and heating with, flames and gas or whatever would be inside, and wood stoves. So this building, Elliott Hall, served well. And then came Shenandoah Hall. And that was that became the ad building. There were other buildings that were dormitories. And I believe that it's fair to say that Gary and Janet had classes in there. So did Rusty, and so did Sandra, and so did Jan, and so did Mr. Schenko, James, yeah. And I remember when I first came here and visited the campus in around 1986, that building was still standing. And I went inside of it, I thought, because I heard so much about Shenandoah Valley Academy, and I went inside, I was like, what? Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I came here in 79, 75. It was 1977 that I was here. It was still standing. And I went inside, I was like, oh, this is an old building, creaky steps, I remember that. But you know, the school had a real strong reputation, a lot of students here, and that building served the campus well.
When I was here in the 6th grade, the elementary school was in the basement
Okay.
of Shenandoah Hall, and we used to play hide and go seek and hide in those bushes.
Uh-huh, yeah. Like the Zirkle Barn, I bet, right? Gary and Janet, what do you guys remember about Shenandoah Hall?
Well, I'm thinking, let's say, the English, Professor Litton was upstairs on the left-hand side.
Yeah, Rusty's dad was teacher here?
Upper left.
Upper left, okay.
Yeah, downstairs was like typing, and Prof. Francis taught religion on the right-hand side on the first floor. And,
Yeah.
yeah, library was in.
Right now, if you go into the ad.
Well, just a second.
Okay.
Thank you, Rusty. We're talking about Shenandoah Hall. Okay. All right. So what's really cool is that when this building was taken down, like I said, I was in there either 75 or 76, somewhere around in there before it was removed. Jan's dad did something really cool, Bill Strickland. Tell everyone what he did, Jan.
Well, actually, it
Oh.
was my first husband and I that took the doors. We were
Okay.
given permission to take the doors, so we took the doors, the glass top, the light, the lamp hanging down, and we took them over to the eastern shore of Maryland, where we lived at the time, and planned to, as we added onto our house, had planned to build that into the house. That never happened, and so at some point there, I moved back here to Virginia, and my dad wanted to get the doors and asked him if he would allow us to have it, and he said yes. And so Dad went over with a trailer and brought back all of that we had hauled over to Maryland, brought it back, and it sat for years in the barn here at the school. And then one year, Greg Coryell and Dennis Steerwalt, two staff members, decided they wanted to go ahead and build that into the school. There was just an alcove there in the ad building, and so they constructed that facade and included the doors, the light, all of the glasswork. And Rusty, you can tell them about the glass at the top.
All right, that little window at the very top. My dad taught what was called Medical Cadet Corps. It was like a ROTC. And all of the MCC materials were stored up there. And Dad had that window in his closet for many years.
Uh-huh.
And so it all came together, and now when you walk in the ad building, and there's a remembrance of it, and that door opens up now to the alumni office right now.
Yeah. So,
And the lettering that says Shenandoah Hall, all of the letters were there except the O, where the frame had, was split, where it was put back together. And so the O was missing, but all the other letters are original, and we got another O to replace them.
okay. Gary.
Yes, just as a matter of, go back to the door, the administration building. That building.
Yeah.
Okay. Our senior year, the school had almost 300 students.
Yeah.
They split, half the students went in the morning and half the students went in the evening and filled into that building.
Wow.
Yeah, because the new girls' dorm was finished, so we doubled the enrollment.
Mm-hmm. Sandra, would you like to add anything about Shenandoah Hall?
I took the chairs from the podium, the 4 chairs that the faculty sat in when we had chapel, and I had those for years, and then I didn't have room for them. So I gave them to someone who really needed chairs for their house, so they live on.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sandy. So that's a reminder for all of those who were part of that Shenandoah Hall, which I think is really kind of cool. It's just a nice touch. And then at the same time, the Dale E. Twomley Hall was built, and of course that's the one that you see today, and that houses all of our pretty much all of our classes. I think it's fair to say all of them, except for maybe a few that are in another building called Hewitt Hall, which is by the cafeteria between the girls' dorm and the boys' dorm. So modern day times, well, I have two of those pictures. That's our lobby, a little more expanded view. If you've never been inside, please come. Up and down the halls are pictures of all the graduating classes, and you can look for Rusty and Jan and Sandy and Janet and Gary and up in those pictures. And of course, this was the new addition that came to our campus. By the way, once again, generous alumni made this possible. It's a kind of a gathering part in front of the gymnasium, and just a very lovely facility. In fact, that's one where Jim and Carol, we thought maybe we could possibly meet there, but the access to that facility is not as easy as the one here as far as parking. And then in closing, I just want to show a couple aerial shots that I have found. I'm just guessing that this was around 1965 because the boys' dorm is up. The old administration building, Shenandoah Hall, is there. This is the gymnasium. Maybe, Jan, maybe that's a wrong date, but somewhere around there, I don't know.
Where the tent is where the Elliott Hall, the original building, and then later it became Elliott Hall.
Okay, where the
Going the other way, but
yeah.
that's
This is one of those camp meeting photographs. And of course the church is not there. That would be somewhere over in this area here. So we're in a building that's not in this picture. So that's that aerial shot. Then someone just found this one for me, 1996. And I might have been in the airplane. That's Uncle Bert's airplane. Bert Williams. I might have taken the picture because I remember doing sometimes that we would fly different places, but he was a great photographer. I'll give him the credit. And you can see the campus, the ad building. This part is the gymnasium. That's a boys' dorm, cafeteria, Hewitt Hall, girls' dorm, and a church.
This is before the new elementary school.
Well, this is the elementary school back
that's
here.
it.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, the old elementary school in the other picture was kind of right. Some of you might know it was right here. So that got moved, and then this one was online. This was I'm guessing around 2017 because all the buildings are there except the new addition to the gymnasium is not there. This was our swimming pool. That was a lot of fun, but the upkeep was too much, and the best thing to do was to fill it in, which we did. And then this is the most current drone shot, and you can see where that addition of we call that Zirkle Hall now. This would be Zirkle Hall, Twomley Hall, boys' dorm, girls' dorm, and here's the church over there. So this is something that I wonder what Charles Zirkle thought. You know, when he looked out his bedroom window and he said to Mom and Dad, I want to give those 42 acres of my family inheritance. I want to give that to build a school. I can't imagine he knew that just that one philanthropical gift would lead to, of 42 acres of a family farm, 115 years of the same mission. And 200 high school students currently, 100 elementary students, we have an 800-member church here, and of last spring, 5,553 graduates. And the mission has not changed. We want to serve God, encourage our students to value knowledge, and accept a life of service, SVA. And all this is still sustained by philanthropical gifts. We have a policy that if a student is willing and parents are willing and the money seems like it's not possible, we try to do our very best. And it's because of alumni that are here this evening that make that possible. And so it started with one philanthropical gift, and it continues because of philanthropical gifts. I want to read to you a little benediction that years ago Jan asked me to have the benediction at our alumni weekend in 2008. We were celebrating 100 years from when the school opened. And I took the school song and I wrote it into a benediction. It sounds like this. Heavenly Father, our history record records your blessings. This place of special birth, a school of sterling worth. For this we are grateful. We are blessed. Please bless our time together. May we feel the big Virginia sun. May Old Dominion streamlets run. May your works in nature be multiplied. May your name be extolled on every side. Please bless Shenandoah this year to be a school where we delight to rest. Bless us as we strive to do our best. Bless our friendships. Bless our families. Bless us with Jesus. In his name we pray. Amen. So, then Carol said, questions.
One of the individuals asked a question. The question was, what is being done to train the youth at Shenandoah Valley Academy and the area to go out to be preachers, evangelists, and teachers? Listen to Buz's explanation.
I'm going to give a little commercial here, okay? Last week, we ran a day camp. It's called Fly Camp Fun Learning About God. And we held it out in Mount Jackson with some church members they own Beverly Farm, which is it's really a beautiful setting. It's kind of a bread and breakfast place. And it was geared for teenagers. We had 15 that came. We spent time marking our Bibles. We spent time looking at the prophecies of Daniel. And last Saturday, they had the service at one of our church plants it's called Valley Fellowship, Seventh-day Adventist Church, in Edinburgh. Along with that, they did some other cool things. Here's the commercial. You let me know, and I'll bring special music. I'll bring young people that preach. I'll bring young people that draw an illustration of what they're preaching about. This Sunday, I've been invited to go to Bethlehem United Church of Christ in 10th Legion. And I'm going to take some of those young people with me. So, because we believe that that's what our young people need to do, is become teachers. There's a shortage. And I know there's a shortage of pastors. Because these little churches like Bethlehem United Church, they don't have a pastor. The pastor retired, they don't have one. I've been to several non-denominational churches with, music and speaking, Trinity United Church of Christ, Raider Lutheran Church, different ones that I've been to, because there's a need. You're absolutely right. We want to do something about it right here. So thank you for giving me a chance to make a little commercials. Please, is there another question? If anyone wants a tour, we'll be glad to do that. Jan is here, Bill is here. They know this campus inside out, and they will be glad to give you a tour.
Okay. This is Ramblin' Rusty signing off for now. I hope you enjoyed the vlog about the history of Shenandoah Valley Academy. Please tune in again to see where I will be next. The background music for this vlog was by Dennis J. Litton. This was an original composition.